I'm going to update you guys on a story that we did. I did this story 2 weeks ago. For those of you that don't know, and for those of you that remember, I did this story about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago when March Madness was in full swing, and I did a story about the probably America's sweetheart of the month last month in St. Peter's University, and I did a whole story about their basketball program and how they overcame like incredibly improbable odds to be where they are today to be where they are today and to make the run that they did in the NCAA tournament. For those of you that are unfamiliar with St. Peter's University, basically what happened was their basketball program squeaked into the NCAA Division I basketball tournament, their men's team, and they won a game against Kentucky, and they continued to win games and basically got into the Elite Eight, which means you're one of the best 8 teams in the country in the tournament. They eventually lost, but they made a huge run into the Elite Eight. And basically, a lot of the players on that team became national celebrities of sorts. So when we last talked, we kind of left off with St. Peter's had just lost the Elite Eight game. They had gone on this awesome run. They'd overcome all of these obstacles that comes with being a Division I mid-major team, etc., etc. And the day that I actually recorded that episode, their head coach this year, Shaheen Holloway, actually left for Seton Hall, which is seen in New Jersey. For those of you that don't know, Seton Hall University is seen as like the much more coveted job. It's like it's the number one or one of the top basketball schools in New Jersey. And so Shaheen Holloway, left because he got a much better opportunity at Seton Hall. Can't blame him. And so that was where we sort of left this story off. But a lot more has happened since Shaheen Holloway left. And I thought I would update you guys on what's been going on with St. Peter's. So the last we talked, I thought, and I was saying on the record that I thought it was going to be a lot of his players. I thought a few of his players would enter the transfer portal because they would get other opportunities. And I thought a lot of them would follow suit because they loved their head coach so much. So they would follow him to Seton Hall University. But actually, none of his players followed him, which is interesting. I don't think it says anything about him as a coach, but it's interesting to see that none of his players really did follow him to Seton Hall. One of the players we talked about in that story was a guy by the name of Doug Edert. Doug Edert was the star of St. Peter's off the bench this year during the tournament in particular. He was the first one out of all of the players to announce that he was going to enter the transfer portal, which he did. And since then, he announced that he would be attending Bryant University, which is a small school in Delaware and a small mid-major Division I basketball program. So basically what I'm trying to say is Doug Edert didn't really make an upward move, in my opinion, when it came to him and his college basketball career. That being said, on the outside, it may look like a lateral move, but also on the inside, we had no idea what his interest was like. We had no idea who was interested in him. We had no idea if anybody really wanted to pick up Doug Edert, particularly the bigger Division I schools, because the fact is he was a bench player on a 15 seed team that made an improbable run. So there wasn't a lot really going for him besides the fact that he was sort of the tournament darling of a lot of things. But anyway, Doug Edert has since transferred to Bryant University. So that's where he's at right now. Then Daryl Banks and Matthew Lee were the two other stars with St. Peter's. They also entered the transfer portal and have left St. Peter's, although we do not know where their next destination is going to be for either of them. I believe they're probably still looking at their options and still trying to figure out where they want to go. Doug Edert did announce Bryant University, like I said earlier. Daryl Banks and Matthew Lee were kind of unidentified. The star senior on the team, KC Ndefo, who was a senior this year, this is their forward/center. He is going to be looking to the NBA draft this year. He's announced that he has declared for the draft and is going to see what his options are in terms of his draft eligibility. To be honest, I'm not quite sure where he's going to be drafted. I'm not sure at what position he's going to be drafted. I think it would be somewhere lower. Definitely not a lottery pick for sure. I would say maybe late second round is where KC Ndefo is looking at for his NBA draft prospects. But I'm not a draft expert. I don't pretend to be. That's just where he has announced that he will be headed after this year. My main takeaway, sort of, though, from all of this, from all the player movement, moving to different schools, moving into the transfer portal, moving even into the NBA for the case of Casey and Defo, my takeaway of this is St. Peter's will never happen again. The core of last year's St. Peter's team is gone, all but gone. A lot of them, for various reasons, and for the fact that a lot of them have gained the publicity, they moved on for bigger opportunities, and you can't fault them. I understand if you're a St. Peter's basketball fan, you're upset that a lot of your favorite players are gone and are moving on, but they're moving on to bigger and better things, and they're doing what's best for them, and you can't fault that. You can't fault them for anything. But that's the truth, honestly, of many sports stories. And unfortunately, it's this way for the St. Peter's program. The school does really well. They exceed expectations. They're a mid-major program that made improbable odds to reach a certain point. And the people who were a part of that core are leaving that sort of mid-major underdog program to explore bigger opportunities, and the mid-major and St. Peter's University at the end of the day is the loser. They gained all sorts of publicity after the great rise of this team and how well they did in the NCAA tournament, but the reality is a lot of the core is gone, and we're not going to see that core try and take it home again. This isn't the NBA where you can sort of incentivize people with money. This is still college, and people are still trying to build their careers. And I really want to stress this point. I've been stressing this over and over again. I want to stress it again. You cannot blame the coach. You cannot blame any of these players, because the reality of what they're doing is that they're doing what's best for their career. They are doing what's best for the opportunity that they were given. They had a fantastic opportunity because they made the Elite Eight. And so now they're doing what they believe is the most lucrative opportunity for them financially and for their basketball careers, respectively. So if you had the question in your mind that St. Peter's could run it back, maybe be a higher seed, maybe in a different form, maybe there'll be new stars that form on their basketball team next year. Maybe they still will be one of the better teams in their Mid-Atlantic Conference. But the reality is the core with Doug Edert and Shaheen Holloway and Casey and Defo and Daryl Banks is no more. And so they're going to have to do it in a different form with a different head coach, with a lot of different players and a different system. The St. Peter's that we know and love from this year, from this tournament, we'll never see that again. As sad as it is, that's the reality. So I know it's a little bit sad of an update, but the fact is, I mean, if you're a sports fan, you're kind of used to this, particularly if you're a college sports fan, because a lot of your favorite players in college are constantly looking out for themselves. And that's not something that you can hate on. And the reality of the situation is simple. You're trying to, shift gears and move on. That is what it is. And if you're not a sports fan, it's just the reality of the business. It's you're looking out for yourself. You can think of it in a corporate sense where you're looking out for the next promotion, the next company that's going to advance your career, looking out for your opportunities to advance yourself and maybe potentially get into a position where you're achieving your dreams. That's, I guess, the way that I would like to put it. But that's the update on St. Peter's.